Right now, a plant in your garden is producing one of the most dangerous and profitable molecules ever sold to humans. You probably ate it last night. You probably fed it to your kids this morning. It is not illegal. It is not regulated, and it is not tobacco. This molecule built a trillion-dollar industry and collapsed bee populations worldwide. By the end of this video, you will never look at your vegetable patch the same way again, and by the end of this video, you will know which of your garden plants produce it, why they have been producing it for 73 million years, and what the industry built on this molecule never wanted you to understand. Most people hear the word nicotine and they picture a cigarette, a warning label on a cardboard pack, an ashtray sitting on a porch railing. But nicotine is not a human invention. It is not a tobacco company product. It is a chemical weapon manufactured by plants, an alkaloid synthesized deep in the roots and pumped upward into every leaf and stem. Its only function is to kill anything that tries to eat the plant that makes it. When an insect chews into a leaf containing nicotine, the molecule enters its nervous system within seconds. It mimics a chemical signal that the insect's own brain uses to control its muscles. But unlike the natural signal, nicotine does not stop. The nerve cells fire without pause. The muscles lock. Paralysis takes hold. Then death. This is not a slow poisoning. This is targeted chemical warfare running silently inside a plant's own tissues every hour of every day. Now consider the scale of the industry that grew around this single molecule. In 2024, the global tobacco products market reached $965 billion. More than 7 million people die from tobacco use every single year. 1.3 billion humans on this planet are currently dependent on nicotine. This is not a niche market. This is the most successful chemical dependency operation in the history of commerce. The entire operation depends on one foundational belief: that nicotine comes from tobacco, that tobacco owns this molecule, that without the tobacco plant, nicotine does not exist. That belief has underpinned a trillion-dollar industry for over a century. It is also incomplete, because tobacco is not the only plant producing this compound. It is not even close. And the plants that share this molecule with tobacco are not growing in some distant jungle or locked inside a government laboratory. They are sitting in your garden right now. But to understand why they are there and what they are doing, you have to go back 73 million years. In South America, long before any human walked the earth, a family of plants began to take shape. Scientists call it Solanaceae. Most people know it as the nightshade family. Using fossil and genetic evidence, a breakthrough study in 2023 estimated that the nightshade family actually originated roughly 91 million years ago, deep in the Cretaceous period, long before the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. After that mass extinction, the nightshade family exploded. It diversified across the shattered remains of a devastated planet and spread relentlessly outward. Today, it contains 99 genera and roughly 2,700 species found on every continent except Antarctica. From the rainforests of Brazil to the highlands of India, to the farm fields of Central Europe, to the suburban backyards of North America, these plants colonize the world. Within this enormous family sits one genus called Nicotiana. It includes about 75 species. Every single one produces nicotine at high concentrations. But the genetic machinery for making this molecule is not limited to those 75 specialists. The entire family of 2,700 species carries the code. For 73 million years, these plants have been locked in an arms race with the insects trying to eat them. Plants that produced more nicotine survived because fewer insects could tolerate the poison. Insects that developed resistance survived to reproduce and push back. Both sides escalated with each generation. The pressure compounded over tens of millions of years. The result is one of the most refined chemical defense systems the natural world has ever produced. These plants spread to every habitable landmass on the planet. They brought their chemical arsenal with them. At some point in the last 10,000 years, human beings started cultivating the most useful members of this ancient family. They planted them in rows, they watered them carefully, they harvested them for food, and they never once suspected what those plants were quietly manufacturing inside their own leaves. Here is what is growing in your garden right now: tomato, potato, eggplant, bell pepper, and the ornamental flower hanging in the basket on your front porch. Petunia. Every single one of these plants belongs to the Solanaceae family, the nightshade family, the same family as tobacco, not distantly related, not a cousin 10 times removed, direct siblings in the same genetic lineage, and every one of them produces nicotine. Eggplant carries the highest concentration among common vegetables, roughly 100 nanograms per gram of fresh weight. Tomatoes produce measurable nicotine in every fruit. Potatoes concentrate theirs in the skin. Bell peppers carry it throughout the flesh. Petunias run the same program in every petal and every leaf. Now here is the detail that changes how you look at your garden forever. A green, unripe tomato contains approximately 6 times more nicotine than a ripe red one. The plant does this deliberately. It front-loads its chemical defense when the fruit is young and vulnerable, when caterpillars and beetles and aphids are most likely to attack. As the fruit ripens and the seeds inside reach maturity, the plant scales production back down. It calculated the threat window. It spent its chemical resources exactly when they mattered most. Then it pulled back. That bitterness you taste when you bite into an unripe green tomato is not a defect. It is a message. The plant is telling every insect within reach that this fruit is defended. By the time the skin turns red, the chemical garrison has already stood down. The molecule in all of these plants is not a variant of nicotine, not a related analog, not something that merely resembles it under a microscope. It is the identical compound, the exact same molecular structure, atom for atom and bond for bond, that built a trillion-dollar addiction industry. The concentrations in vegetables are vastly lower than in tobacco, 100,000 to 1 million times lower depending on the species and the tissue. But the molecule itself does not differ by a single atom. Every eggplant parmesan, every baked potato, every stuffed bell pepper, every plate of fried green tomatoes, they all contain the same molecule that the entire tobacco industry was built to sell. And human beings figured out how to use it thousands of years before any Western chemist ever gave it a name. In India, farming communities have used preparations from nicotine-rich plants as natural pest control for more than 2,000 years. Long before anyone isolated this compound in a laboratory, farmers across the subcontinent understood that certain plants repelled insects. They learned that water infused with nightshade leaves could protect an entire field of crops when sprayed across the foliage. This was not guesswork or superstition. It was targeted knowledge refined across centuries of careful observation. And it worked. Across the Atlantic, gardeners and farmers on every continent where nightshades grew arrived at the same discovery independently. Tobacco water, leaves boiled or soaked in water for hours and then brushed or sprayed onto vulnerable crops. For centuries, this was one of the most widespread pest control methods in domestic gardening across Europe and the Americas. The nicotine in the solution killed aphids, caterpillars, mites, and dozens of other crop-destroying insects on contact. By 1690, nicotine as a deliberate insecticide appeared in formal Western agricultural records. By 1915, a commercial product called Black Leaf 40 reached store shelves across the United States. Pure nicotine sulfate sold in a bottle, available to home gardeners and commercial growers alike. That product stayed on the American market for nearly 80 years. Then the bans arrived. In 2009, the European Union prohibited nicotine-based pesticides. In 2014, the United States followed. After 3 centuries of documented use and thousands of years of traditional practice before that, the natural molecule was pulled from the shelf. But the chemical industry did not walk away from nicotine. They did something far more profitable. They rebuilt it. In laboratories across Germany, Switzerland, and the United States, chemists studied the molecular architecture of nicotine and designed a new class of synthetic insecticides modeled directly on it. They named them Neonicotinoids. The word literally means new nicotine-like compounds, same killing mechanism, same nervous system target, same result for the insect, but synthesized in a chemical plant instead of extracted from an actual plant. Patentable, brandable, sellable at enormous scale. By 2024, the global neonicotinoid pesticide market reached $5.3 billion. $5.3 billion for a synthetic copy of a molecule that every tomato plant on Earth already produces for free. Picture a commercial soybean farm in central Iowa. Flat rows stretching to the horizon under a pale Midwestern sky. A tractor pulling a sprayer rig loaded with hundreds of gallons of neonicotinoid solution. That solution is a factory-made reproduction of the same compound that tomato seedlings in a backyard garden 2 miles down the road are manufacturing on their own. The farmer pays for the synthetic version by the gallon. The tomato plants make the original for nothing. Same molecule, same function. One carries a corporate price tag, the other has been free for 73 million years, but the synthetic version created a crisis that the natural version never caused. Neonicotinoids do not stay on the crop they were sprayed onto. They seep into the soil, they migrate into pollen grains, they enter the nectar, and when honeybees visit treated flowers, the synthetic nicotine enters their bodies and destroys their ability to navigate back to the hive. This is colony collapse. Bee populations crashing across the farm belts of North America and the countryside of Western Europe. Pollinator numbers falling at rates that threaten the foundation of global food production. The synthetic copy of a 73-million-year-old plant defense molecule is killing the very insects that human agriculture depends on for survival. Governments eventually noticed. As of 2024, 22 member states of the European Union have placed severe restrictions on neonicotinoid use. Switzerland has enacted bans. Several American states have followed, yet production continues. Belgium, Spain, and Germany remain top global exporters of the very chemicals their own regulators restrict at home. Let that timeline settle. For thousands of years, farmers used natural nicotine from plants to protect their crops. In 2009 and 2014, the natural molecule was banned. The synthetic copies that corporations engineered to replace it stayed on the market, and those synthetic copies are now implicated in the collapse of pollinator populations worldwide. The natural compound plants evolved over 73 million years to protect themselves. Illegal. The corporate replica built to generate quarterly revenue, still sprayed across millions of acres, still killing bees. Now pull back even further. The global tobacco market is projected to cross $1 trillion in 2026. The entire business model rests on one narrative. Nicotine equals tobacco. Tobacco owns the molecule. Without tobacco, there is no nicotine. If the public understood that every nightshade vegetable on Earth produces the exact same compound, that every tomato and every potato and every eggplant is a small-scale nicotine factory, the exclusivity narrative falls apart, not the product. The story around the product. None of this is conspiracy. No one sat in a boardroom and plotted to hide the fact that eggplants contain nicotine. What happened is simpler than that and more effective. A molecule that grows in every backyard garden cannot be patented. A natural pesticide that plants produce on their own cannot generate repeat purchases. A chemical defense system that has operated inside nightshade species for 73 million years cannot be licensed or branded or sold in a capsule. No corporation benefits when the public discovers that their tomato plants already run their own pest control. No quarterly earnings improve when a gardener realizes that the petunias on the front porch are synthesizing the same molecule that funds the largest legal drug trade on the planet. If you have been watching here on Garden Explained with Harry, you have seen this pattern before. Knowledge that generates no revenue receives no marketing budget. Products that cannot be owned cannot be sold. What cannot be sold disappears from public awareness within a single generation. Perilla contains the highest omega-3 concentration ever measured in any plant, and most Westerners have never heard its name. Duckweed produces more protein per acre than soybeans, and no major institution funded research on it for half a century. Pine resin was used as permanent waterproof adhesive for 200,000 years, and your local hardware store does not carry it. The system does not suppress. It ignores, and ignoring is more effective than suppressing because nobody notices it happening. Walk outside right now. Look at your garden. If you grow tomatoes, you are growing a nicotine factory. If you grow potatoes, you are growing a nicotine factory. If you grow eggplant, you have the highest nicotine concentration among common vegetables right there in your raised bed. If you keep bell peppers in containers on the patio, those containers hold plants producing the most profitable molecule in commercial history. If you planted petunias in the flower border along your front walkway, you planted nightshades running chemical defense in the same soil your vegetables share. Your green tomatoes are operating at peak chemical output right now. Every unripe fruit on the vine carries more nicotine than it ever will again. The plant is protecting its investment. It will ease off when the seeds mature and the skin turns red. Until then, every caterpillar that lands on that stem is biting into a defense system older than the Rocky Mountains. Gardeners who intersperse nightshade crops among their other vegetables already benefit from this without knowing it. Eggplant rows planted near vulnerable leafy greens, tomato cages flanking the bean trellises, petunias lining the edge of the raised bed. These are not just food plants and decoration, they are chemical sentinels running a program that predates every civilization that has ever existed on this planet. You did not design this system, you did not engineer it, you just planted a garden. And the plants did what they have been doing since the late Cretaceous. They manufactured their own defense. They asked nothing from you, they simply grew. Somewhere tonight, a gardener is standing in the pesticide aisle of a garden center. Fluorescent lights humming overhead, plastic bottles of synthetic insecticide lined up on metal hooks. Each bottle costs $12 to $20. Each one contains a laboratory reproduction of a molecule that the tomato seedlings on the display shelf in the next aisle over are already producing inside their own leaves. Same molecule, same function. One comes with a warning label and a price tag. The other has been free for 73 million years. The plants never stopped making it. They never will.